Welcome back to Limit Break 20. My name is Coleman Webb, and in today's video, we're going to be going over the Dragoon class in Final Fantasy XIV Tabletop RPG. So, the Dragoon is probably one of the most iconic characters in the entire Final Fantasy franchise. It was first introduced in Final Fantasy II with Rickard Highwind, and for me, growing up playing the Final Fantasy series, Final Fantasy IV was one of my favorites, and it was Kane Highwind was the Dragoon that I spent the majority of my youth playing growing up. This video is near and dear to my heart because for a long time I've tried to create a Dragoon in other tabletop RPGs such as Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, and I could just never seem to get it right. Came close a couple times with some of those builds, but so very, very excited. So what we're going to do is we're going to just jump right into the character sheet. So the first thing we're going to do is review the Dragoon's primary attributes. As you can see, they have a +5 to strength, a dexterity that's +3, a vitality that's +2, an intelligence of +1, and a mind of +1 as well. Now, their secondary attributes are going to be their defense, which is 14, their magical defense of 11, their vigilance of 11, and like every other character, they can move 5 squares. Now, the most important thing to note about the Dragoon is that their primary attribute that's going to be used for their attacks is strength. So they are going to be getting a +5 to their d20 dice rolls when they go to use their abilities. Next thing you're going to see is the MP of 5. Dragoons don't use MP, so that's kind of null and void for us. And then they actually have an HP of 26, so they actually have the second highest hit points in the starter guide, as well as the available classes that are jobs, as they call them, in Final Fantasy XIV. Now, what we're going to do next is move into and just go over their traits and other effects. Now, the first thing to note is that they have a combo like a lot of other martial characters. So it says here, after resolving the effects of an ability with combo, you may use one of the specified abilities at any point during your turn. You may move before doing so or may choose a new target when using this additional ability. So this will be more important at higher levels when you get more than just 2 attacks into your combo abilities. But the 2 other enhancements that they get is the first is called Power Surge. So while under the effects of Power Surge, your abilities deal an additional 2 damage. And the cool thing about Power Surge is it's actually going to last until you're knocked out. So once you've activated it, you're pretty much have it on all the time. So really, really good as an opener, and we'll go over that in a little more detail. The next enhancement that they have is called Drain. And basically, when you have Drain activated, your abilities give you an extra 2 HP when they do damage. So basically, you're getting the ability to sort of self-heal, which is great. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move into the primary abilities. So the first thing you'll notice is that they have a combo. And the base of the combo is going to be True Thrust. So this is going to be that first attack that you're going to do. Basically, you're going to use your strength, and you're targeting a character's defense, which is basically every ability that the Dragoon has is going to target the defense. So the base effect, as you can see, deals 3 damage to the target. Then what you get to do is choose whether to use the Dragoon combo or disembowel. So like most other abilities, if you get a direct hit, you're dealing an additional 2d6 worth of damage. So the first combo attack that you can choose to go into is called Dragoon combo. So what this does, targets a single enemy 1 square, and the base effect is that it deals 3 damage and it deals an additional 2d6 worth of damage. So this is going to be your maximum damage output when you're using the combo. And the reason being is because that direct hit does do an additional 2d6 damage. Now, the other option that you have, and this is going to be the ability that as a Dragoon, you're going to want to open with on the first round of combat. It's called Disembowel. So same type thing, single target, range of 1 square, targeting defense, but what's really unique about it is that this is going to activate Power Surge. So now going forward, any ability that you use, whether it's a combo, ranged ability, anything, you're going to be dealing an additional 2 damage for the rest of the encounter or until you're knocked out. So this is really big, especially if you get into uh, rounds 3, 4, 5, right? Maybe more. A fight that has different phases, you don't have to reactivate this. So that's a really, really cool thing. So the next thing we're going to dive into is going to be Piercing Talon. So this is actually the ranged attack that the Dragoon has. And so um, the main fighting style of this Dragoon is going to be to get up close and personal. In fact, what you're going to want to do is basically try to stick your spear into anything that moves. Do what you want with that statement. But if in the event you can't make it to an enemy, you do have a ranged ability. And basically, this has got 5 squares, deals 3 damage, and it deals an additional 2d6 on a direct hit. Now, the most iconic and best ability that the Dragoon has is going to be their jump ability. And anyone who's played Final Fantasy is going to know how absolutely awesome this ability is. So you can target anyone within 5 squares, whether they're up close to you or not, doesn't make a difference, but you can target any enemy within that range. And the cool thing about this is the base effect is going to be doing 2d6 plus 3 damage. Now, if you get a direct hit on this, you're going to be dealing an additional 2d6 worth of damage. And this ability resets once per phase. And so this is the highest damage output ability that the Dragoon has. Now, one thing that's really unique to remember is that if you score a critical hit on any of the Dragoon's abilities, you're doubling the amount of dice damage you roll. So theoretically, if you get a natural 20 on the Dragoon's jump attack, you're dealing 8d6 worth of damage, which is basically ends up being, I want to say, 33 points of damage on average. I think it jumps to 35 if you're using one of their other abilities, or if you have, if you just have Power Surge activated, I think it does about 33 points of damage, which is huge. And even if you don't get the critical, it still on average does about 19 points of damage. So really, really powerful ability. And we'll go into kind of some advice that I have and kind of when to use this. So now what we're going to do, that wraps it up for the primary abilities. So the next thing we're going to do is go over their secondary abilities. So the first one that we're going to talk about is Life Surge. Now, this base effect grants the ability to use Drain until the end of this turn. And most importantly, you get 1 advantage dice on your next ability check. And the limitation on this is once per phase. Jumping into the second secondary ability that they have is Lance Charge, and you get 2 uses of this. So your abilities will deal an additional 2 damage until the end of your next turn. How I would use Lance Charge is I would look at basically using it to, if I'm going to be using just a regular combo ability, because it lasts until the end of your next turn. So if you're using your combo ability, you're striking twice, so you're getting an additional 4 points of damage out of this ability. And then Bloodbath, this just basically grants you Drain till the end of the next turn. This is going to be something where if you need some health, go ahead and use this ability. Resets once per phase. And then their final secondary ability is Leg Sweep. And this is basically just going to be a stun. So if, let's say, there is a enemy that is getting ready to cast an AoE ability on you and you're in that target mark, you can actually use this once per phase to stun a character and get them out of the, get them basically out of hitting that AoE marker, which is great. Now, the one thing about the Dragoon is they don't have too many instant abilities, so we're going to go over both of them here. The first one is called Feint, and what happens is immediately before an ability by an enemy is resolved, so it hits you, something happens, what's going to happen is it's going to reduce the damage dealt by the abilities of this enemy by 2 until the end of this turn. So let's say you're fighting a really big bad enemy and the tank goes down, you're the closest enemy, and he just tees off on you and he's going to hit you 3 times. If you drop Feint right then and there, that's going to reduce all of those abilities by 2 until the end of this turn. So that's a pretty big damage reduction, or can be. Might mean the difference between life and death in combat. Now, the final instant ability that they have is called Second Wind, and this is just a heal, and it's going to restore 1d6 plus 2 HP. Can use it once per phase, and it's when any character finishes their turn. So remember, the rules with instant abilities is that you don't have to wait for it to be your turn or other teammate's turn. You can do this at the end of an enemy turn. So you get walloped or hit with a critical by one of the enemies, go ahead and use this. The final thing we'll talk about, won't spend too much time on, is their limit break. It's called Dragonsong Dive. You can trigger it any time, so this is really cool, and you can use it within 5 squares. So what this does is this deals 6d6 worth of damage to a target, and then you can move to an empty square adjacent to the target if one is available. And you can use this ability to evade an enemy attack. So let's say, for example, you get targeted with an ability, and the Crystal Bear, that's what we call Game Masters on this channel, hits a natural 20. What happens is you can actually trigger your limit break to completely evade that attack and drop some damage on him and reposition yourself. So that's a really, really cool ability, and the fact that you can just use it as a dodge makes a huge difference. So now I want to talk about a couple of different things that you're going to want to do when it comes to playing a Dragoon. So the first thing you'll notice is every ability that uses a resource resets on a phase. So what this means is that you have, as a Dragoon, a lot of different options to enhance your damage, get for yourself some health back, provide some support by sending characters. And the cool thing is that even if you are fighting an encounter that is going to take a little bit longer, all of your abilities are going to reset. So the most important thing, I think, for a Dragoon is to not be afraid to use their resources. Now, the 4 resources that I say you can't leave on the table are going to be their jump ability, life surge, and lance charge. And if we just look at the last 2, life surge and lance charge, if you didn't use those in combat, you're leaving almost a guaranteed 11 points of damage out on the table, right? You're getting an additional 2, well, depending on if you're using the combo, you're going to be getting 4 per turn with lance charge, so that's 8 right there. And then if you get that advantage die from life surge in order to land a direct hit, that's an extra 7 points. So again, you're leaving maybe 15 points of damage when it's all said and done. And the other one is jump. I mean, jump is just too good of an ability. I personally would recommend opening with disembowel, and on my second turn, go ahead and use life surge and hit jump on who you think the character that has the most health or maybe is the biggest threat on the battlefield. And again, the biggest part of life surge is that you get that advantage die. So there's 2 reasons you want to do that. Because jump's direct hit gives you 2d6 worth of damage, you get the ability to, and actually almost all their abilities do. So even if you used it on their combo, their True Thrust or the Dragoon combo, you're still going to have a better chance of hitting the extra 2d6. But what makes it really, really valuable is when you get the critical hit on jump. So that advantage die pushes up your chance to get a critical a little bit higher, which I've actually seen that happen in a couple of my plays on Roll20, and it's pretty impressive when you pull that off. The other thing I would say about the Dragoon that's important to know is that this character really requires the least amount of complexity of all the DPS characters. So if you're new to tabletop RPGs or you're new to Final Fantasy XIV and you're really just trying to get your sea legs about you, if you will, then go ahead and run the Dragoon. They're very, very straightforward. They've got some really cool techniques, and they really make you feel like a badass. And yeah, so I think if you're going to play a DPS character, which I don't like the fact that they call it DPS, which is damage per second, and they're just damage dealers. So that's how I would look at them. But Yeah, that's basically kind of wraps up just that video of the Dragoon. No battle map, nothing too crazy. It's just get into the fray, hit your combos, activate your secondary abilities, and do as much damage as possible. And if you need to get out of the way, get out of the way. That's all I had for you today. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this job video for the Dragoon. Again, really iconic Final Fantasy character, very unique, really cool. Great role play potential as well. So one of my favorite classes or jobs in the Final Fantasy series. So, and that's it for the Dragoon. Hopefully this gave you a little bit of a better understanding of how to play them. Nothing too crazy or complex. So if you like this content, feel free to attune to this channel by liking and subscribing. And until next time, stay safe adventures.